Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. In this exciting episode of Unbearable 73, we'll throw my awesome and intense discussion of Moon Knight, Season 1, Episode 2, rather unimaginably titled Summon the Suit. And that fake enthusiasm is about the only way I can get excited for almost everything that happened in this episode. So first, let's talk about the technical aspects of it. The production value stayed the same in comparison to the first episode. However, this allowed me to notice something which I think is a trend in action TV shows and movies. And let me first say, when I identify this, I think the concept that I mentioned is perfectly fine for certain movies and TV series in certain uses. Right? Doctor Who, for example, uses this concept well. The concept is something I call fake action. What is fake action? Fake action is movement, the doing of things, even fighting motions that are not meaningful to the plot. And I don't mean the inner plot of the scene they're in, I mean the plot of the movie or the whole episode. Why is this important? Well, usage of such fake action can be a way to pad the runtime of a production, or make a book longer, or whatever. You get the idea there. The risk, however, is that it can cause a viewer to lose their willful suspension of disbelief, or even lose their interest in what they see, since it's quite possible that the viewer wants to see what happens, and when nothing happens, the plot is not further. Well, after a certain point, you just lose interest. It's like, in a really simplistic way, remember the childhood game Duck, Duck, Goose, where all the kids sit in a circle and someone runs around going duck, 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 and it says goose, and the goose is chasing the duck. Right? The plot of that is essentially one kid does the duck, 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 choose a goose, and has to run around to that spot before the goose catches him. Right? Imagine if the kid doing duck, 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 duck never said goose, or went halfway around the circle saying goose, then did a triple backflip and a breakdancing move, then walked around again and did started doing a kung fu show with a showdown with the gym teacher, then walked around again. I mean, that's kind of the point, okay, of fake action used in the wrong way. Now, fake action can be used to serve other elements of production, such as characterization or pacing, very well. Doctor Who, before the Chibnall era, used it quite well. Without having to have constant action scenes and fight scenes or science fiction battles, the Doctor would occasionally get frenetic at the right time to increase the pacing of the episode or to draw the viewer into a particular thing that was about to occur. And his freneticism would drop, letting the viewer sort of drop back and say, okay, things have calmed down now. It wasn't used as a plot element to make things longer. It was used in the occurrence of a plot to either as a character moment for the Doctor or for the pacing. Another actor who uses it well is William Shatner. People like to joke about Shatner and his pause acting, like, hey, let us go to the bathroom. Spock, what can we do? But in reality, Shatner does this to control the pacing of what's going on. Go back, now that you know this, go back and watch, say, the original Star Trek series, or T.J. Hooker, or even his episodes of what was the show he was in with Spader? What's Spader? Just the thing that spun off of Ally McBeal, right? Boston Legal. Go back and watch and look how Shatner controls the pacing of the scenes he's in by how he pauses his words and actions or speeds them up. So, Moon Knight episode 1 and 2 contain a noticeable amount of action scenes, some which were fake and some which were real. So let's take a look at a real action sequence from the first episode and then a fake action sequence from the second episode, so I can show you the difference in Moon Knight. So I'm going to play the first clip now.
Is he still here?
This is the scene where we first basically get introduced to Arithia.
Oh, bollocks.
And the reveal. So we have an action scene here. He's dictating people moving. Now keep watching.
Hiya.
Action doesn't just mean fighting. It means physically doing something further into the plot. Like climbing a mountain, moving through the crowd in a particular way,
my name's Stephen Grant.
and so forth.
I'm trying to get back home, back to London. London. Don't know why I'm saying it like that.
Well, Stephen Grant at the gift shop.
And the plot here, the secret of the plot here is that the hero character is being introduced to the villain.
Yeah,
And we'll learn that the villain wants something that the hero has.
You will give him.
And we'll also learn something about the hero character. See, the action sequences are serving the plot.
I strongly encourage you to return that.
I'm not.
Now we're learning more about the hero character. He's something inside him preventing that from releasing the scarab.
Fingers froze.
And the villain is perplexed. There's a mystery to him as the villain as to what's going on with this person who's denying him.
Sorry about that.
I will not ask again.
I didn't do that on purpose. Don't know what's happening. There we go. Just take it. Oh God! I'm trying to stop my legs. Take it! I can't. I'm trying to stop my legs from moving. I'm trying to give it to you. Wait. It's all right.
Even a little bit of clever use of a little bit of slapstick in there. A tiny bit of humor to sort of take the tension down just a little bit to set you up for this.
No, the idiot's back.
That sequence right there is the best done sequence of anything in both of these episodes.
meat!
Oh bollocks!
Now let's go to a sequence from the next episode. This is when the Jackal of Anubis, as I call them. I'm sure that I don't know if I have another name, but the Jackals of Anubis is assaulting.
That should have been much worse. Oi, Stephen, what the hell are we wearing? Don't know. She said I needed a suit. Yeah, the ceremonial armor.
Now, while you're watching all of this,
Psycho Colonel Sanders. Well, I don't know how any of this shit works, man.
ask yourself what is the plot of the episode and how is this
Where is
serving?
the scarab? Scarab. Oh.
This action sequence doesn't do anything to move the plot. Why? Because the plot is the capture of Mark Spector so they can obtain that scarab. Not what happens in this scene, because, well, if this scene had an involved capture of Mark Spector, or Mark Spector somehow fighting off the Anubis, but that's not what happens. This scene is, in fact, delaying the plot and also delivering some badly timed comedy. Ask yourself, why didn't the Jackal of Anubis, which is what I'm calling it, just kill Layla? He ragdolled her multiple times. Just kill her.
Stay away from me!
Or rip the head off or smash into the ground. The answer is because the scene wasn't part of the plot. If the scene was part of the plot, that he would have tried to kill her, and therefore that would have been interesting, and then maybe Spectre would have had to come out as Moon Knight to save her. That's an interesting option. They didn't do that at all. There was no danger. You may be fooled by Grant Persona putting on that costume to have more mention of below, and maybe hitting effective punches against the Jackal. But that's irrelevant because that character was completely unable to stop him, and he had to let Spectre's personality take control. And we'll watch the conclusion of this clip so you can see the utility. Here now. Now that she's basically being ragdolled. You can just smash her head into a brick building 10 times and she's dead.
Give me control.
Why didn't he do that?
You can't handle this.
I'm advocating for killing her, but basically there was
away from her, you.
They put the character in danger with no potential threat of payoff. And as you're watching this, you're in your head, you're saying, what am I watching here?
Come on,
why is this thing toying with that? Well, I mean, it captured them, right? Why did it take it back? Didn't take it back? No, we get a comedy dance routine now.
What? I did it! You got planted!
Compare the scene I just showed you, all of its effectiveness and part of the plot and how it implements things, versus this scene. I'm not even comparing it to other shows which are better than this. I'm using two scenes in this show itself to show you what I'm mentioning. And when you watch these two episodes, you'll see more like this when they have action than like the first scene. So let's move on to discussing the writing. I've talked about some already. The writing and pacing being problematic. Without going into great detail, we would have had a better episode if they cut about 20 minutes out of this one. They seem to be spending a lot of time on Grant's inability to accept his dissociative personality disorder, but that was a bait and switch, which I'll talk about later. And just characters, a little comment mention of characters. We're introduced to Layla, who's the wife of Mark Spector. They either have to go into the idea that Spector dissociative personality disorder is a new thing, or because it's impossible for those two to have been married for any length of time, and this issue, hard not to have noticed the issue. Dissociative personality disorder isn't like doesn't work like a secret identity. People who have it switch spontaneously upon being triggered. Their spouses, if they've been married to presumably for at least a couple of years, by the way it's described in the show, would have noticed. Now, on Layla herself, I'm kind of 50-50. There were some aspects of the character I liked. She was good as an action-oriented character without being a woke caricature, meaning she portrayed as an action character well. She didn't have superpowers, so she didn't do Wama and stuff, as people like to call it. But that's kind of what I'm getting at. And she was believable in what she did. She didn't jump off the top of a building or anything crazy like that because she has no powers. And there were aspects I disliked. She seemed way too Deus Ex Machina-like in terms of her role. She conveniently avoided any lethal dangers and reappeared at convenient times to move the plot forward. Yeah. So that's some general thoughts before I go to the mental health aspects. My positive impressions. The meta plot seems to be grounded in Egyptian mythology, though I'm not sure if it's the Marvel version or the real-world version or something cobbled together for the show. We'll probably go over their use of it in the 6 episodes at the end of the season. Harrow, as played by Ethan Hawke, is a consistent villainous presence. I mentioned this in the first episode review. He does just the right amount and type of evil to not be a caricature. He's not overexposed, and his powers seem to be clearly defined. Oscar Isaacson continues to act at a high level. I'm just beginning to be worried about the material he's been given. Now for the negative impressions. This episode was padded out way too much. Instead of filling it with scenes that continue to do the same thing, which is to show over and over again Grant struggling with aspects of his mental health, which we as audience already know. If not in the first 10 minutes of the episode, then sometime in the first episode we knew we were struggling with it. They could have developed maybe a supporting villain more. Since we now have a secondary hero in Layla, they could have a secondary villain but harder to square off with, Or they could have developed the mythology with Khonshu and Ammit, maybe have some verbal jousting or something like that. There's a movie based on a French comic book. I'll link to it below where they do some Egyptian mythology stuff, with the gods sort of talking and stuff. When you introduce a character who's supposed to be significant like Layla, a better job than this needs to be done. I don't care about all by the end of this episode. Honestly, I don't care about for most of the episode, even for the end. She seems like a walking plot device who happens to be pretty. And the bad use of fake action scenes I already mentioned. Now, with regard to the mental health issues, which is a big factor for me in doing a good Moon Knight adaptation. Okay, they spend way too much time with the Stephen Grant persona in this episode. Furthermore, when they should have switched out, they didn't. Instead, they're basically taking time to use a new superhero identity for Grant, Mr. Knight. And in the comics, that's another personality for Moon Knight. Okay, so now they're clearly set up the nice guy, pushover, and goofy Stephen Grant persona as one hero, and overly violent, protected Mark Spector, Moon Knight, as another hero. They portrayed Spector as not only not the real character, which he is in the comics, but overly violent and potentially driven to casual murder. I did kind of like how Isaacson portrayed Grant as struggling to reject his violent persona. That's something that resonated with me in my own mental health struggles. I think they should have spent much less time on it than they did. We should be deeper into this by now of the mental health of the personalities moving, because there's only 6 episodes. So, and Moon Knight has at least 3 personalities in the comics that interplay. Plus, Khonshu is there. Khonshu is not Khonshu is just separate from Mark Spector's 3 personalities. 3 predominant ones, I should say. It's not easy at times to let a negative trait like events happen to me in my own past become dominant in my life when I let them trigger emotional responses. And that you could see Grant portraying that, struggling with that, the way Isaac portrayed him, that something negative would happen to him, and it would kind of trigger emotions he's kind of suppressing, deal with it. I think they would have better served with switching to a third personality, not having Grant be the main show for the better part of these 2 episodes. In other words, when he couldn't accept letting Spectre persona out, maybe another personality emerges which gets him out of trouble, but in a less violent way. And maybe make this persona not as action or anything, but Grant's just coming across as too. Well, I'll talk about this below. So I can't let this go without mentioning the inevitable bait and switch that Marvel's doing here. As with all of their line, they're replacing legacy heroes with either tokenized versions or with of those characters or emasculated versions of those characters. We have double slit bait and switch potentially. By virtue of the screen time, they've established the Grant persona, as portrayed in the show, is the main or dominant one. The bumbling, goofy, emasculated hero is sneaking on screen. The showrunner has stated they intend to portray Spectre as overly extreme and violent, which is basically saying that the actual Moon Knight character, which we know from comics, is a bad person. The other bait and switch emerged with the drop that Khonshu wants to replace Spectre as his fist with Layla. So there's tokenized Moon Knight. My final thoughts, I was not overly impressed with this episode. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's maybe a 4. It's not as good as the first episode. I'm going to review the whole season just to see how it pans out. I think the trend is that we who want to have a good Moon Knight TV show are wasting our time. Comment down below if you please. If you don't, if you have any questions for me, drop them down there. Share this video if you will. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day. I am out of here.